As a seasoned forensic investigator, my career had been intimately entangled with death for many years. Yet nothing in my past experience could have prepared me for the chilling and otherworldly events that would unfold one fateful night at the long-abandoned Willowbrooke Asylum. My phone had rung ominously late in the evening, the voice on the other end desperate and pleading. A series of unexplained deaths in the area had all been traced back to the infamous asylum, a dark and foreboding structure that had remained eerily silent for decades. With a heavy sense of unease, I had packed my forensic gear and headed out. Arriving at the imposing asylum as the last vestiges of daylight gave way to a moonless night. Willowbrooke Asylum, with its imposing facade and chilling reputation, was a relic of a bygone era, a time when mental illness was poorly understood and the treatment of the afflicted was nothing short of barbaric. It was a place that had housed the suffering and the tormented, where compassion was scarce and cruelty was the norm. Its walls bore witness to the anguished cries of countless souls trapped in the abyss of madness. As I ventured deeper into the asylum, the air grew thick with the weight of forgotten suffering. My flashlight's feeble beam revealed the decaying remnants of the past, shattered windows, rotting floors, and corridors that seemed to stretch endlessly into the blackness. Each room told its own grim tale, a story of despair etched into the very walls. But it was in the autopsy room that the true horrors of Willowbrooke Asylum would come to light. The first body I examined lay on a cold, steel table, a woman in her mid-30s, her emaciated form bearing the unmistakable signs of prolonged malnutrition and abuse. As I began my examination, a shiver raced down my spine, and a faint, mournful sob echoed through the chamber. I froze, my gloved hands hovering over the lifeless form. The sound had been real, hauntingly real, and it had not come from me. My flashlight's beam darted around the room, landing on the lifeless woman on the table. It was impossible. She couldn't have been the source of that heart-wrenching cry. But then, the sob came again, clear this time a pitiful cry. A plea for help that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. I took a step back, my heart pounding in my chest. But the room remained empty except for the woman on the table. Gathering my resolve, I forced myself to continue my examination, my mind racing to find a rational explanation. I chalked it up to stress, exhaustion, or perhaps a draft in the old building. But then the impossible happened. The woman's lips twitched, and her eyes, once lifeless, flickered with a desperate light. Help! Justice! Her voice was faint, barely more than a whisper. My hands trembled as I stepped back from the table. The woman on the autopsy table was supposed to be dead, but here she was, crying out for justice. Summoning all the courage I could muster, I stammered, "Who are you? What happened to you?" The woman's voice quivered as she recounted her harrowing tale. She had been an inmate at Willowbrooke Asylum, condemned to a life of unspeakable torment, neglect, and suffering at the hands of sadistic staff members. She had died, she said, without ever seeing justice served for the inhumane acts committed against her. Tears welled up in my eyes as I listened to her agonizing story. I found myself making a solemn promise to do everything in my power to uncover the truth and bring her tormentors to justice. But as quickly as her voice had returned, it began to fade. With each passing moment, she grew fainter, her form slowly slipping back into lifelessness. It was as though she had expended the last of her energy to make her plea. Undeterred, I continued my investigation, determined to unearth the truth that had been buried within Willowbrooke Asylum's decaying walls for generations. What I discovered was a web of corruption, cruelty, and unspeakable horrors that had festered within those cursed halls. The tortured souls of the deceased were unwilling to rest until justice had been served, and their cries would haunt me for years to come. Willowbrooke Asylum has long since been demolished, but the echoes of that fateful night continue to reverberate in my nightmares, serving as a haunting reminder that justice must prevail, no matter how long it takes or how deep the darkness goes.